Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am very excited to be doing another palette redesign video. I think that you guys probably already know this drill, that whenever like a new palette comes out and I have like something to say about it, I usually say it. And if like inspiration strikes, then I definitely sit down, open Photoshop, and I just tinker around and see what I can do to make this palette more fitting into like my idea of like a fantasy amazing palette, you know? So I've done a few redesigns and it's really fun for me. I really enjoy it. I always want to say that I am in no way, shape, or form trying to minimize the effort and the dedication that these brands and the people behind them put into these launches. It's just that it's fun for me to just introduce an alternate opinion. No one asked me, but it's fun to do. So today we're going to be talking about the new ColourPop Orange You Glad palette. Now, when I actually first looked at this palette, I was thinking, wow, an orange palette. I mean, orange is not a color that I actually like tend to gravitate towards like right off the bat, but it's nice to have like an orange color. It's like it gives room for like some interesting color stories and interesting combinations. And by the way, one of the videos I posted, I think it was the day before yesterday, I basically did a look inspired by this palette, and it was like this like orange, like monochromatic and gold look. Really loved that. I was really happy that this palette inspired me to create that look. And I mean, I feel like it just goes to show that orange is a really fun color to work with. I mean, sometimes I feel like orange can be a little bit overlooked, at least by me, but it's just a fun color to use and it's interesting to work with. So when I was looking at this palette and when I was thinking of orange, you know, in my head I was thinking of an orange palette, I was not expecting to see a palette like this because, I mean, if you take out all the orange shades, all the like colorful orange shades in this palette, you are left with what is mostly a palette of neutrals. I mean, like, it's kind of like half and half. Some of the shades can be classified as neutrals, others as colors, but like a lot of this palette is, in my mind, very neutral, and that's not what I like. I mean, what I like is like a super colorful array of shades. And I know my makeup look today, it's very vanilla. You're probably thinking, oh, she wears this type of look and she doesn't necessarily deviate from it. Wrong. I have built my entire channel over colorful makeup and I love it and it's amazing. So for me, whenever I look at a palette that is, say, an orange palette, I want it to be like completely orange. So with that being said, here is my redesign, and I'm just going to put the original palette on top and the redesign on the bottom so you can see that the palettes are similar, but they're also very different. I actually went in and I basically modified each and every single shade, which doesn't usually happen, but I kind of went all out. So anyway, with that being said, let's just get into this video, and I'm going to break down each and every single one of these shadows and tell you why I changed the shades the way I did, and we're just going to be talking about my fantasy redesign mock-up palette and comparing it to the original and very real Orange You Glad ColourPop palette. Okay, so the first shade that kind of made me very confused, I have so many emotions, was this color right here. This is called Zested, and see, for me, this might be an unpopular opinion with some people, but for me, I just don't like these bone white, or rather cream shades. So what I did is I basically modified it and I created something that is, in my mind, like a transition color, but I wanted it to be like a very yellowy, very like orangey kind of transition color. It's kind of like a pukey brown, but it is lighter and it is a little bit brighter than that. And yes, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of transition colors, but I felt like adding so much yellow into this color and just making it look a little bit more of like a pukey brown color, I felt like that would basically make it into a shade that would look good with the other orange shadows and would also satisfy somebody who is not necessarily such a big color fiend like I am. Moving on, let's talk about Squeeze Me. Now, Squeeze Me, I actually didn't do much to it. I was contemplating just leaving it alone, but I decided to just like add a tiny bit more red to it, just to make it like a little bit more of like a orangey color. It's definitely still retaining like that champagne color that I had before, because it's definitely like a champagne color originally, which we have a lot of. But like, I mean, I figured that I wanted to add like a few more notes of slight orange to it to make it more of like a cohesive palette, in my personal opinion. Next is the color called Creamsicle. Now, Creamsicle in the original palette was like this rather pretty, like just pinkish sort of color. Now, I look at this color and I'm thinking, well, if I ever like owned like a house, if I ever had an apartment, maybe I'd contemplate painting one of my walls this shade. But I don't want it on my face. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll never paint my walls pink or that color. I have no idea. When I think of like how this would look on the eyes, like I don't think it would look that exciting, and I kind of wanted to change it up. And at the same time, I wanted to make Creamsicle a shade that would go brilliantly with all the different other oranges in this palette. So what I did is I made it like a golden yellow. And I know ColourPop already released a golden yellow palette, which I did a redesign on. But I felt like, I mean, see, orange is such a fun color to work with, I feel, especially if you have like a yellow, because this yellow, like if you think about it, you could use this yellow as a transition color for the orange, and yellow is so flattering on so many people. Like if you haven't tried yellow eyeshadow, try it, maybe try it in the crease and just like put like a brown all over the lid, or if you're more adventurous, orange all over the lid, and just like try yellow in the crease. I feel like yellow is just such a fun color to work with, and it is really flattering and really lifts a look, and I felt like it would work brilliantly with this palette because it not only goes, in my opinion, with the color story. And by the way, there's a gold later on in the palette that I feel like mirrors the yellow quite nicely. I felt like it would just be a useful color, just in general, to add into this palette. A lot more useful, in my personal opinion, than that pink color that was there before, because that pink color, I mean, I don't think that a lot of people would be able to wear that pink color. Let's talk about Rise and Grind. So this is like another one of those colors that was sort of orangey. I mean, I'm looking at different pictures. I was looking at different pictures, and the one that I saw on Trend Mood, it looked more orange, but the one that was on ColourPop, it looks like a little bit like more of a red orange. It's like an interesting color, I would think. But I looked at it and I was like, well, I would like to make it more of like a tangerine orange. So I added like a little bit of golden yellow to it to make it into like a light, like pumpkin orange, you know? Well, tangerine, pumpkin, you know, both orange colors. And I'm very satisfied. I'm very satisfied with it. I feel like it looks quite beautiful. It is a matte. I mean, I need to talk about finishes in this video. It is a matte, like that's what I see it as. And yeah, I really like this shade. And again, I feel like this shade would work so well with that yellow that we added in earlier. So next we have a pressed glitter. I believe this is a pressed glitter. And it's in the shade Clementine. And this is like a light champagne-y sort of shade. And I mean, see, the thing is, like, there are two things that I want to talk about with this pressed glitter that I do not necessarily like. Number one is a pressed glitter in a palette. I mean, if you're doing like a monochromatic palette, I mean, I guess you could just ColourPop, just release like a pressed glitter palette, honestly, and stop putting pressed glitters in your monochromatic palettes, because I think it's a waste of pan space, because not every single person wants a pressed glitter in their eyeshadow, you know what I mean? And it's a waste of pan space, especially when you have 9 pans. Sounds like a lot, but you can do a lot with 9 pans, and I feel like putting a pressed glitter into a palette is decreasing the potential that you have, especially if it's not eye safe. Like, I mean, I think that, like, when it came to the yellow palette that they just released, they put, like, a pressed glitter right smack in the middle, and then, like, on the back of the palette, it says, not eye safe, or not intended for use around the eyes, and then people were like, it's an eyeshadow palette, or, like, it's a palette that you're supposed to use on your eyes. So, yeah, like, pressed glitters, just no. And I feel like this particular shade, this is an orange palette, not a champagne palette, so just know. So what I did is I basically changed this color into like a pumpkin metallic. I feel like this would be a beautiful foiled metallic, and I like see like it being like a very just like beautiful buttery soft metallic, perfect for like all over the lid or just like in the center of the lid. And if you're being adventurous and you're in a corner, why not? And yeah, like I feel like this is a beautiful like pumpkin shade that would really be like one of the stars in this palette if it was that particular shade. So that's why I changed it. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about Sunkissed. Sunkissed was originally like a light orange shade. And see, the thing is, when I changed Rise and Grind to be like a pumpkin shade, the shades looked a little bit similar and it looked way too similar for me. So what I did is I basically changed Sunkissed into like a darker version, a little bit more of a more red version than the color that had been there previously. Because I definitely feel like with this palette, I didn't want to make it like a palette that had shades that looked super similar. I wanted the palette to look very different, you know? Or rather, I wanted the pans to look very different, and that's what I was trying to do, so that's why I changed this color the way I did. Next, we have Tangerine Dreams. Tangerine Dreams is a light gold, and I mean, I love a light gold, don't get me wrong, in some cases, but I felt like with this palette being an orange-themed palette, I wanted it to be a gold that was more orangey, like slightly more of an orangey gold, not like an orange metallic, but like a gold that had deeper notes of red in it, that had like a stronger golden look to it. So that's why I just like upped the saturation. I added a little bit more red to it, and I changed Tangerine Dreams into a very like just metallic orangey gold color. Moving on, let's talk about Mimosa Mami. So Mimosa Mami, what I did here is I basically made it into a little bit, I changed the color slightly, not very much, but slightly, and I made it into a shade that was quite like a little bit more yellow. I didn't like change the color that much, I just added some yellow into it. So essentially Mimosa Mami is retaining a lot of its like original look, but it's still a little bit more yellow, so I felt like it was a stronger orange, if you will. Last but not least, we have Yapil Me. And this color, I mean, see, okay, I was looking at it and I was like, well, I mean, it's like a pretty color, but like after I had basically gone like all ham on this entire palette and like changed everything, and I was like just like on my like I was getting excited, I was like, well, see, like this reddish kind of color, it doesn't really fit in my mind with the orange look of this palette. I mean, it sort of fits, but it's not like a perfect fit, so in my opinion. So what I wanted to do is I essentially like made it into an orange. Like I just made it into like a flat out bright orange, and then what I did is I just basically made that orange shade, you can do this in Photoshop, and made it several shades darker, so that Yapil Me retained its like sort of like dark look, but it's like an orange dark. It's like a dark orange, and I felt like it would be a terrific shade to really just define the eye look if that's what one wanted. So this is pretty much the entire palette redesigned. We have the before, and then we have the after. And I mean, I like this palette. I think it's like just, I think it's a decent palette. Do I think it's my favorite monochromatic palette that ColourPop has released? No. Will I buy it after I'm done with my no buy? I don't think so, because there's nothing in this palette that I don't, sorry, my hair is like very touchable today. There's nothing in this palette that I don't already like have, you know? And if there's anything in this palette that I don't have, I don't necessarily want it. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I mean, if I definitely like want to get like any one of the monochromatic ColourPop palettes, there are definitely other palettes from the line that I do have my eye on, but this is not one of them. Like, just it's just not, you know. But that is it for this video. I have to go to work now, so I have to sign off. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought down below and I'll get back to you. But with that, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.